I'll never forget that night, because it burned itself into my skull like a cigarette pressed too deep. It was supposed to be a normal Tuesday. I had just left work late, shoulders aching from another day of corporate nonsense, and all I wanted was to go home to a hot shower and maybe a cold beer. Instead, fate shoved my face right into the ugliest truth of my life. Her name is Jessica, my wife of 9 years. The woman I thought I knew down to the way she stirred her coffee. And the bastard she was with, Ryan, some slick-looking punk with too much cologne and a laugh that made my skin crawl. I caught them at the Silver Lantern Hotel, the kind of place people go when they don't want to be recognized, when they want to keep their dirt hidden under dim lights and cheap carpets. I didn't plan to see them. Hell, I didn't even know I was walking into their hideout. I was there because my coworker, Ethan, had left his laptop in a meeting room we rented earlier that day. He begged me to grab it for him since the hotel was 5 minutes from my office. So there I was, casual, unsuspecting, the loyal husband, the errand boy. And then, in the lobby, I saw her. She was coming down the stairs, her hair messy in that I've been tangled up in sheets kind of way, her lips swollen, her dress halfway zipped. She froze when our eyes met. For a split second, she looked like a deer on a highway, caught, terrified, and still trying to decide if lying could save her. Then Ryan appeared right behind her, shirt buttons misaligned, grinning like he owned the world. That grin broke something inside me, because it wasn't just the betrayal, it was the arrogance, the fact that he had no shame standing there beside another man's wife, still glowing with the stink of what they had done upstairs. I didn't scream, I didn't punch him, I just stared, every nerve in my body shutting down. My mouth tasted of rust. My chest was hollow, like the air had been vacuumed out. And in that heavy silence, Jessica spoke first. "David, it's not what you think. Not what I think." She could barely keep her heels on, lipstick smeared like war paint, and she had the audacity to look me in the eye and throw out that rotten cliché. My fists clenched so tight my nails cut into my palms. But I didn't move. She stammered, tried to laugh, then tried to get angry at me, as if I was the intruder in her private playground of lies. Ryan put a hand on her shoulder, casual, like he'd already replaced me. That was the moment I knew. Whatever story she was about to spin, however she planned to twist this, the truth was right in front of me. My wife, the woman I trusted with my entire soul, had chosen this clown over me. The lobby seemed to tilt. The receptionist pretended not to notice, though her eyes were sharp with pity. I walked past them without a word, Ethan's laptop forgotten. My whole world suddenly cracked open. But here's the thing about betrayal, it doesn't end when you walk away. It follows you. It seeps into your skin. I drove home that night with shaking hands, headlights blurring through tears I didn't want to admit were there. My thoughts ran wild. How long? With how many? Did everyone know but me? That was the start. The spark. The moment everything I thought I knew about Jessica, about us, turned to ash. And deep down, even in that first hour of hell, I knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, reality hit like a hammer. I woke up on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes, my head pounding with the ghost of unanswered questions. The house smelled like her perfume, faint and cruel, clinging to the curtains, to the cushions, to me. It was like the walls themselves were mocking me. Jessica wasn't home when I finally dragged myself up. No note, no text, nothing. Just her absence, which suddenly felt louder than any scream. I didn't need a detective to tell me the truth, but my mind wouldn't stop scratching at the details. I had to know more. I started with the small things, her phone charger missing, her purse gone. Then I checked the laundry basket, a move I didn't even think about, just instinct. And there it was. A blouse I hadn't seen her wear in years, crumpled, stinking of cologne that sure as hell wasn't mine. The smell punched me in the gut, proof as solid as any photograph. Anger rose, then crashed into despair. I paced the living room like a trapped animal. My eyes fell on her laptop, sitting wide open on the kitchen table. I'd never snooped before, never had a reason to, but something about that glowing screen pulled me in. I told myself I just wanted answers, the kind only she couldn't give. And there it was. Her email was still logged in. Dozens of messages from Ryan. Lines of filth dressed up as romance. He called her baby. He told her she was the escape he'd always needed, and she wrote back like some schoolgirl, promising nights, swearing love, mocking me between sentences. One message froze me. Don't worry. David is too blind to notice. He trusts me. We're safe. Blind. That's what she thought of me. A fool sitting in his own home while she was out rolling in cheap hotel sheets. My hands trembled so bad I almost dropped the laptop. But then something else caught my eye. A calendar invite. Dinner reservations. Tonight. At Rocco's Steakhouse, the place where Jessica and I used to go for anniversaries. They were meeting there, bold as hell, like she wasn't even scared of being caught anymore. My stomach churned. I could have smashed that laptop, could have stormed straight to the restaurant and dragged them both into the street. But instead, I sat down, staring at the screen, my pulse hammering in my ears. I wanted to know, how far would she take this? How deep did the lies go? When she finally came home, hours later, she was all smiles and excuses. Said she had been shopping with Megan. Her hair was perfect, her dress new, her lies smoother than silk. She kissed my cheek like nothing had happened, then disappeared into the shower. I sat there, silent, the stink of Ryan's cologne still lingering in the laundry basket, and I made myself a promise. Tonight, I would see the truth with my own eyes. No more blind, no more fool. The stage was set. That night, I drove to Rocco's Steakhouse like a man walking into his own execution. The streets blurred by, my hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles looked bone white. I didn't tell Jessica I was leaving, didn't care if she noticed. She thought she had me wrapped around her little finger, thought I was sitting at home waiting for her. But I wasn't that man anymore. Not after what I'd read. Not after what I'd seen. Rocco's was buzzing with life. Glasses clinking, laughter spilling out of the open windows, couples holding hands across candlelit tables. It was the kind of place built for romance, not betrayal. I parked across the street, heart slamming against my ribs like it wanted to escape. I waited, and then I saw them. Jessica, dressed in that black dress she used to wear for me, now flaunted for him. Ryan swaggered beside her, his arm brushing hers like he owned her. The sight of it burned. My blood went cold, then hot, then cold again. They walked inside and I followed. Not too close, close enough to keep them in sight. The hostess smiled at me, asked if I had a reservation. I muttered something about waiting for a friend and slid into a corner booth, perfectly angled. From there, I had a clear view of their table. They laughed. They drank wine. Jessica leaned in close, whispering, her hand sliding over Ryan's like it belonged there. She looked happy, happier than she'd looked with me in months. It was like watching my own life crumble in slow motion. The waiter brought their steaks, and I caught snippets of their conversation. Ryan was talking about taking her to Vegas, about finally being free. Jessica giggled like a teenager, saying she couldn't wait. And then she said it, David's too stupid to ever find out. He thinks I'm at Megan's tonight. Every word was a blade. My jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. My first instinct was to storm the table, flip it, drag her out by her lies and scream the truth in her face. But something in me shifted. I didn't want a scene. I wanted control. For once, I wanted her lies to drown in silence, while I stood there watching her choke on them. So I stayed put. I sipped water I didn't order, hands trembling under the table, eyes locked on the woman I married turning into a stranger with every laugh. When they finished dinner, she excused herself, heading toward the restroom. Ryan leaned back, smug, scrolling on his phone. That was my chance. I walked past him, close enough to smell his cologne, the same one that clung to her blouse in the laundry basket. I didn't say a word, just brushed by, my presence like a shadow. He glanced up, frowned, maybe recognized me, maybe not. Didn't matter. I left the restaurant before Jessica returned, the night air biting my skin. I had seen enough. My doubts were dead. The truth was alive and clawing at my chest. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. The next morning, the storm finally broke. I didn't plan a speech, didn't rehearse clever lines. I just woke up knowing I couldn't keep pretending. My chest felt like it was full of nails, every breath heavier than the last. Jessica was in the kitchen, humming, cooking eggs like some sitcom wife. The smell of bacon filled the air, but to me it reeked of lies. I sat down at the table, watching her flip the eggs. My silence must have felt heavy, because she turned, her smile twitching. "What?" she asked. "Why are you staring at me like that?" I leaned forward, elbows on the table, and said it straight. "Who is Ryan?" The spatula froze in her hand. Her eyes widened for just a fraction of a second, long enough for me to see the truth. Then she laughed, a brittle, fake laugh. "Ryan? I don't know any Ryan. Where'd you even get that name? You're acting crazy." Crazy. That word hit like a slap. Classic deflection. She set the spatula down and crossed her arms, tilting her head like I was some child misbehaving. I pulled out my phone, opened her emails I had screenshotted, and slid it across the table. Her own words stared back at her. Promises, hotel plans, dinner dates. David's too stupid to ever find out. The color drained from her face. But instead of guilt, what I saw was rage. Pure, sharp, bitchy rage. "You went through my emails?" she snapped. "You spied on me? Do you know how pathetic that is?" I laughed, bitter and hollow. "Pathetic? Jessica, you've been sneaking off to hotels, giggling with that clown like a teenager. And I'm pathetic." She slammed her hand on the counter, eyes blazing. "You don't give me what I need. You're boring, David. You come home tired, reeking of beer, and you expect me to just sit here like some obedient wife? Ryan makes me feel alive. He makes me feel wanted. Something you haven't done in years." Her words were daggers, everyone aimed at the softest part of me. I wanted to shout, to tear the house down, but I kept my voice level. "So your solution was to crawl into bed with another man?" She sneered, cruel as a whip. "At least he knows how to touch me. At least he doesn't treat me like a piece of furniture." Silence fell. Thick, suffocating silence. I looked at the woman I had built a life with, the woman I thought I knew, and realized she wasn't even trying to deny it anymore. She was proud, defiant, a scoundrel standing in her own filth, daring me to challenge her. I stood up, my chair scraping the floor. My hands were steady now, calmer than they'd been in days. "Jessica," I said, my voice low, "this marriage is over." She smirked, like she'd won something. "Good. Saves me the trouble." And with that, she turned back to her eggs, as if burning 9 years of my life was nothing more than flipping breakfast. When I walked out of that kitchen, it felt like I was stepping into another universe. The walls of our house, once warm with shared memories, now pressed down on me like a coffin. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't grab a jacket. I just left, slamming the door hard enough that the windows rattled. My legs carried me aimlessly, but my heart was bleeding out in slow motion. I ended up at the riverfront, where the city lights flickered on the water. I sat on a cold bench, head in my hands, shaking. Rage boiled inside me, but underneath it was something worse. Hollow sadness. That's the part nobody tells you about betrayal. It's not just the fury. It's the way you feel gutted, emptied out like your insides were scooped clean and replaced with ice. I thought about the nights Jessica and I had spent here years ago. We'd hold hands, talk about dreams, laugh until our stomachs hurt. I remembered promising her forever, believing we were unbreakable. And now, she was laughing with Ryan, mocking me in her emails, spitting in the face of everything we built. The shock kept hitting in waves. 1 minute I was furious, replaying her sneer. "At least he knows how to touch me." The next minute I was crushed, wondering how I hadn't seen it sooner. How long had she been slipping away from me? How long had I been blind? Too wrapped up in work and bills and routine to notice her slipping out the door. But then came the guilt, ugly, unfair guilt. I asked myself if maybe I drove her to it. Was I really that boring? Did I smother the spark out of us without realizing? Her words echoed, cutting me deeper. "You come home tired, reeking of beer. I wanted to scream, to claw those thoughts out of my head. She had made her choice. She could have talked to me, yelled at me, demanded change. Instead, she chose betrayal. Instead, she chose Ryan. By the time dawn crept over the horizon, my body felt like lead. I dragged myself back home, unsure if she'd even be there. The house was dark and silent. Her car was gone. The closet was half empty. That was it. No note, no apology, no attempt at explanation, just absence. I collapsed on the couch, staring at the ceiling, the silence suffocating. Tears came. Not the hot, angry kind, but the slow, bitter ones that leave your throat raw. I hated her. I loved her. I wanted her gone. I wanted her back. My head was chaos, my chest splitting open under the weight of every emotion colliding at once. Sleep finally dragged me under, but it wasn't rest. It was drowning in dreams of her laughing, of Ryan's smug grin, of me pounding on locked doors that never opened. I woke up with one thought carved deep into my bones. I couldn't keep living in this limbo. Something had to break. Either me or this marriage. The morning after that collapse, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the cold coffee in front of me. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The house was quiet. Too quiet, like it already belonged to ghosts. Jessica's perfume lingered faintly in the air, but she was gone. Her side of the closet, stripped bare. The drawers, half empty, felt like a robbery, but the thief wasn't some stranger. It was my wife. For the first time in days, I wasn't drowning in questions. I had an answer. She had chosen him, and in doing so, she had already walked away from me. The only decision left was mine. Divorce. The word used to terrify me. I always thought it was something that happened to other people, never to us. We were supposed to be solid, supposed to outlast every storm. But Jessica had smashed that illusion like glass under a hammer. I picked up my phone and called Mark, my oldest friend, the kind of guy who never sugarcoats anything. When he answered, I didn't even know where to start. She cheated, Mark, I said, my voice cracking, with some guy named Ryan. It's over. There was silence on the line. Then his voice, steady, blunt. Then you burn it down, man. Don't give her another inch. Call a lawyer. Protect yourself. Don't let her drag you into her mess. It was the clarity I needed. No pity, no empty comfort. Just direction. By noon, I had an appointment with Mr. Hoffman, a divorce attorney recommended by Mark. The man was sharp, professional, with a way of talking that made me feel like at least one thing in my life was under control. He listened carefully as I spilled everything. The hotel, the emails, the confrontation, her walking out. He nodded, jotting notes. David, I'll be honest. This will be ugly. She's already acting reckless, and reckless people do desperate things. But the good news is you're in a strong position. I'll make sure your accounts are safe. She can't touch what you've built. Hearing that felt like the first sip of water after a desert march. Relief, small but real. After the meeting, I drove back home with a new kind of fire in my chest. Not love, not grief, resolve. For days I had been staggering in shock, letting Jessica's betrayal crush me. But now I had a weapon. Plan. When she finally texted later that evening, her words dripped with venom. Don't wait up. I'll come by for the rest of my stuff later. And don't try to stop me. I didn't reply. I didn't beg. I didn't rage. Instead, I screenshot the message and forwarded it to Hoffman. Evidence. Jessica thought she'd left me broken. But she hadn't. She'd only stripped me down to the core, and at that core I wasn't weak, I was steel. The marriage was dead, and I was ready to bury it. Jessica didn't waste time turning ugly. Within days of me filing, she started her games. Phone calls at midnight, voicemails dripping with venom. 1 minute she was sobbing, begging me to be reasonable. The next she was spitting curses, calling me pathetic, useless, boring. She wanted to break me down, twist me into doubting my own decision. But I didn't bend. Every word she threw at me only hardened the wall I was building. My lawyer, Hoffman, kept me steady. Let her rant, he said. The more emotional she gets, the easier this will be for us. Still, it wasn't easy. Some nights, her voice cracked through my defenses. I'd sit alone in that too-quiet house, staring at the empty chair across the table, and wonder, was I the villain in her story? Had I really failed so completely as a husband? But then I'd remember her sneer, her gloating emails, the way she paraded into Rocco's with Ryan like I didn't even exist, and the doubt would burn away, leaving only anger and resolve. Then came the casino incident. I got a call from the police at 2 in the morning. Jessica had been caught causing a scene at Bright Star Casino. Drunk, furious, losing money she didn't have. When they dragged her out, she was screaming about me, about Ryan, about how everyone had ruined her life. They asked if I wanted to come down, but I didn't. I told them flat, she's not my responsibility anymore. The next morning, the story was already circulating. Friends whispered, neighbors glanced too long, co-workers sent awkward texts. Everyone knew. For years we had been the stable couple, the ones people pointed to as proof that marriage still worked. And now, we were tabloid material in our own community. Ryan, it turned out, wasn't her knight in shining armor after all. Word got back to me that he ditched her after the casino fiasco, leaving her to face the police alone. That stung in a way I didn't expect. Not because I pitied her, but because it confirmed what I had suspected all along. She hadn't betrayed me for some great love. She had thrown everything away for a cheap thrill, for a man who wouldn't even hold her hand when things got hard. The fallout spread further. Jessica tried to get access to my accounts, but Hoffman had already locked everything down. When she realized she couldn't touch my money, her fury doubled. More late-night calls, more threats, but instead of tearing me apart, all of it stitched me back together. Every insult, every drunken voicemail was proof I'd made the right choice. I wasn't losing a wife, I was shedding a parasite. I looked in the mirror one morning, really looked, and for the first time in months, I saw a man instead of a ghost. My face was worn, my eyes shadowed, but there was steel there. The fallout wasn't destroying me. It was rebuilding me. And Jessica? She was crumbling under the weight of her own choices. The day I signed the divorce papers felt unreal, like stepping out of a nightmare and into fresh air. Hoffman slid the documents across his polished desk, his voice calm, steady. All that's left is your signature, David. My hand didn't shake. The pen scratched across the page, smooth and final. It wasn't just ink, it was freedom. I thought I'd feel grief in that moment. Instead, I felt light, lighter than I had in years. Like the weight of Jessica's lies, her sneers, her perfume-soaked betrayals, had finally lifted. Hoffman leaned closer after it was done, lowering his voice with the faintest smirk. Your accounts are safe, Mr. Carter. She can't touch you now. Safe. That word rang in my chest. For the first time since I caught her at the Silver Lantern, I wasn't trapped in her storm. I had walked out. The weeks that followed were strange. The silence of the house still echoed, but it no longer haunted me. Instead, it gave me space to breathe. I started running again, rediscovering old hobbies, even calling friends I'd pushed aside during the years of marriage. Slowly, piece by piece, I stitched myself back together. Of course, Jessica didn't vanish. She lingered like smoke. Rumors of her blowing money she didn't have, chasing Ryan even after he'd tossed her aside, clawing at anyone who would listen. Sometimes, I caught myself wondering if she ever thought of me, if she regretted setting fire to our life. But then I'd remember the look on her face when I confronted her. The smirk, the venom, the way she spat. Good. Saves me the trouble. No, regret wasn't in her nature. She was too much of a scoundrel to look back. And that was the final lesson. I had loved a mask. The woman I thought was my partner, my anchor, had never truly existed. What lay beneath was selfish, cruel, hungry for cheap thrills. I had wasted years trying to feed that hunger with love and loyalty, not realizing it could never be filled. Do I hate her? Some days, yes. Some days the bitterness burns like acid. But most days now I just feel nothing. She's a ghost of my past, a cautionary tale carved into my bones. If there's one piece of advice I'd give anyone standing where I stood, it's this: trust your gut. Don't ignore the late nights, the excuses, the sudden changes. Don't let love blind you to reality. And above all, don't let betrayal define you. Can break you, yes, but it can also rebuild you into something stronger. I'm not the same man I was before Jessica's affair. I'm sharper, colder, maybe, but also freer. The wounds are still there, but they're scars now, not open cuts. And as I walked out of Hoffman's office that day, the papers signed, the marriage buried, I realized something I never thought I would. Betrayal hadn't ended me. It had released me. Jessica lost everything. I found myself.